Okay, it looks like we have several attendees already, so let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session titled Listen to Your Products, Rethink the Way You Build and License Your Products. My name is Katrin Walzerland, and I'm a sales manager with Thales Software Monetization, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. The topic is more relevant than ever, with a surprising start of the year 2020, where COVID-19 has made vendors to rethink the way they operate. In many companies, there's an increased sense of urgency looking into how to get closer to their customer demands and how to monetize flexibly. As we get started, it is my pleasure to introduce you to today's speakers. Andrew Dailey, who's the managing partner at Mgi Research in the field of Agile monetization. He has more than 25 years of experience in the tech industry, consulting enterprises in strategies around software and technology. He's director of Carbon Vault, a market-based approach to reducing CO2 emissions. Thank you for being with us today, Andrew. And the second part of the session will be Eddie McNeil, who is principal business consultant with us here at Thales. He has more than a decade of experience in software monetization and digitalization strategies and has helped numerous well-known enterprises with his advisory. Thank you for joining us here. Lastly, a few logistics for today's session. It will be recorded and you will receive an email with the details of the recording afterwards. This is a listen-only webinar, so feel free to ask your questions in the chat window of the session and we will address them in the end of the session. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Andrew.
Thanks, Catherine, and welcome everyone. This is Andrew Dailey of MGI Research. It's my pleasure to be joining you today. And let me just get the slides advanced. So first, a few key words about MGI Research. We were, for those of you who don't know us, founded in 2008 by a group of leading industry and investment analysts and tech executives. MGI provides business, finance, and IT executives with subscription-based research and advisory services. Each one of our analysts brings over 25 years of industry experience, and our clients are typically mid to large size enterprises in Europe, North America, and Asia. We are the only independent analyst firm with a unique focus on the topic of monetization. So with that, what are some of the key issues we'll be discussing today? I'll talk very briefly about what are some of the lessons from the coronavirus experience as it relates to monetization so far. A little bit about why does monetization matter? Why are we here? And then we'll look at what we see as how the customer expectations are likely to change over the coming 3 to 5 years. And then we'll look at some of the hard numbers in terms of what are the investments that can be made to yield the biggest impact on improving customer intimacy and monetization. And then we'll look at, as a part of all of this, kind of what can be done to increase both agility and improve financial performance, which is gaining ever-increasing scrutiny in today's environment. So if we take a look at kind of what's happened as it relates to the coronavirus, as most countries are now deep into the second month or more in the process of combating COVID-19, we can take stock of kind of where are we coming from, what have we learned, and possibly where are we going as it relates to customer relationships and the state of business and monetization. At MGI, we began private briefings with our CEO clients in the second week of March, providing them with scenarios and some associated timing and probabilities of those scenarios to help guide their decision-making process. And it goes without stating that the shock to both local and global commerce is without precedent. and the effects of this virus are going to be felt for years to come. But what we have learned so far, however, is very clear. First and foremost, staying close to your employees, your customers, your suppliers has never been so important. The second, this event really is a clarion call for business agility and the digitization of business. And we now see in the lockdown that so many countries are in, that every single manual intervention in a process is now exposed. And companies that are that have become fully digital are already showing signs of greater resilience than the others. And third, what we're seeing so far is that a digital customer experience is not only about a modern front end, it's about a fully automated back end that gives customers and our partners the ability to interact and, more importantly, transact with our company, with our business, with as close to zero human intervention as possible. And so we see this event as really being the point of clear delineation from the approaches of the past and how we go forward in terms of how we instrument our products, how we automate our processes, and how we digitize our business so that there's much greater agility to respond to market needs. Hopefully the future market shifts won't be as dramatic as this one, but clearly we need more agility in our organizations. So why does monetization matter? So if you think of every possible kind of high-level topic or term that gets bandied about today, whether it's the age of the continuous customer, the always-on customer, the Internet of Things, key trends like autonomous vehicles, the subscription economy, or even responding to the coronavirus, if you could pick any one or all of these and look at what their underlying characteristics and requirements are, it's really the need to respond to customer needs, to create unique offers, and to scale the business without adding more people. And it's looking at new ways to monetize the value that's being received, and it's the need for mass customization of pricing and offers, and it's the need to take massive amounts of data from a variety of different sources, some from the product and how the customer is using it, from other sources, and then being able to translate that into a spectrum of charges that we can potentially monetize. So being able to look at usage and consumption-based pricing. As part of our briefings with CEO clients, we got more than the usual number of inquiries into that as a possible avenue for kind of re-engaging with customers, given their the changes in our customers' underlying business environment. Is it possible to put products out where people can pay as they go? Yes, of course, that's possible. Being able to do that on the back end, that can be sometimes more difficult. And certainly there are the time sensitivities that exceed kind of the current capabilities. What did I consume today? What am I going to forecast the usage to be over the next 3 months? And even at its most basic, monetization matters because you may not speak or meet with a customer in a given week, month, or even a quarter, sometimes not even for a year. But the customer is very likely to receive a bill from you. And that's the moment in which you can either confuse and disappoint the customer or provide clarity and simplicity, even transparency. And that can result in customer delight. Transparency engenders trust, which in turn gives you the permission to ask for more business, and it helps ensure you get paid in a timely fashion. And getting paid faster has never been such a high priority as it is today. So what are the customer expectations as we look forward? And now more than ever, we see that customers are doing much of the kind of quote unquote pre-sales effort without ever speaking to a company. In the projects that we get involved with clients and doing product evaluations, very often the customer organizations will have done 50 to 70+% of the underlying analysis without ever actually having contacted a sales rep. So the customers are looking at, how do I learn more about the product, learn more about the service without necessarily having to engage with a company in a traditional kind of selling mode. The second is customers want agency. They want the ability to self-manage, self-provision, order more service, order less service, and take a look at what's the state of my bill, what's the state of my consumption, and to be able to do that not necessarily in real time, but certainly in quick time. And when the emphasis on cash flow and projecting cash flow has never been greater, we absolutely want to know, what are we going to owe at the end of the month? And we want to be able to do that as our consumption and usage changes over time. And to deliver that on the back end, as I mentioned earlier, is not so easy, and we don't necessarily think about that as kind of a traditional part of product or service. So beyond agency, customers are looking for a seamless experience. And typically when we think of a seamless customer experience and the user experience, we do that within the narrow boundaries of a product or service. But from a customer's point of view, the experience extends beyond features and functions of the product. The customer experience relates to their involvement in the sales process, the onboarding process, and the financial experience of paying the bill, ordering more, ordering less, and obviously the support experience. And so a key question there is, how easy is it to do business with your company? If a customer wants to understand her current usage, is that possible? So one question we ask clients is, where's the friction from a customer's lifecycle point of view when it comes to engaging and ramping up or down the consumption of your product? How easy is it across the entire life cycle, not within the product, but in all the engagement with your business? How easy is it, and where's the friction in that entire life cycle? And that's an important place to begin looking, and the place to start. So I've jumped way ahead here. So one thing we talk about, everyone likes to talk about, is what is a digital business? And we think definitions matter, and we look at what are the attributes of a digital business. And we can think of it in very simple terms as kind of a zero-first definition. One, it's zero latency, it's zero manual intervention, and it's zero paper. And from the first side, it's putting the customer first, data first, APIs first, and putting agility as the top of the priority list in terms of defining what is digital and what is the benefit of being a digital business. So in working with our clients, we came across a very common set of challenges and kind of highlights in terms of where the friction is in their business, particularly as it relates to monetization and engagement. And so we describe that as the 13 deadly sins of monetization. And you can look at that in terms of how long does it take to introduce new offers? Does it take longer than 90 days to introduce a new offer? How easy is it to handle subscription or recurring or usage-based pricing? Do you have to recode the billing system every time a new offering is introduced? How much revenue leakage is there in your organization? We have yet to go into a business and not find at least 3 to 5% revenue leakage in that business. And when we look at the priorities of today and the demands of today, being able to put 3 to 5% straight to both to the top line and the bottom line becomes an immediate opportunity. We also look at the kind of deadly sins of monetization in terms of how much usage and reliance on Excel is there, how long does it take to close the books, is there a single product catalog, is there a single source of truth across the business? And then we look at it in terms of what levels of billing disputes exist and what are some of the fulfillment issues that customers experience. And then finally, the 13th one is how much time does the sales organization spend in servicing accounts rather than selling? And as organizations have to become more and more lean, clearly there's going to be an emphasis on efficiency, and that efficiency is going to be gained through a better product experience where the customers can engage with the product directly and not have to call up their account exec or their sales representative to navigate our organization to get something done. So to support this better customer experience, we came up with this concept of what we call an Agile monetization platform. And it's really 12 to 13 components. It includes some core elements, billing, financials, configure, price, quote, customer service, etc. And there's a couple others that you don't see here on the screen, like entitlements. And this is a picture of something that today is not necessarily available from a single supplier, especially in an agile or kind of cloud-based context. But this is what customers are looking for to support their business and what's necessary for kind of a modern business environment. And so we're seeing many leading organizations beginning to kind of incubate and integrate this capability in-house, and a number of suppliers that are moving in this direction in terms of being able to offer these types of capabilities. And so in a world that's increasingly difficult to predict, we think that applying kind of a traditional hard-coded kind of multi-year approach to monetization is really not very tenable. And the only viable strategy is going to be in adopting kind of a late binding, highly flexible environment, a set of components that are at once collaborative and also disposable, that support the end-to-end customer experience. So if we look at kind of what does monetization nirvana look like, what is this desired future state? And it's a combination of both the strategic and the tactical, and it offers both speed and flexibility. And you can see in taking kind of this AMP type of approach, we're seeing organizations get dramatic improvements in terms of quality and data integrity, and allowing for data monetization, not only of new products, but the ability to create new offers almost on the fly based off of having that capability in the background. So when we look at kind of what's the ROI that we're seeing organizations being able to achieve taking this kind of AMP-based approach, the numbers are pretty staggering. It's 15 to 28% ROI per annum on a sustained basis. And that comes from faster time to revenue, more flexibility in product packaging. It comes from reductions in canceled orders. It comes from the ability to meet higher service levels, and it's the ability to accurately align pricing models with how the product is actually being used or consumed. And it's eliminating some misuse of the product and being able to have a fact-based, kind of data-driven conversation with customers about their usage of our product or service. And it's lowering the overall cost of our payments infrastructure, lowering the cost of change, and ultimately that results in a lower DSO, or day sales outstanding number. All key metrics, all key goals as we go through this unprecedented period in history. And another way to look at it here is in terms of some case studies. You can take a look at where we've looked at across different sizes of companies and the differences in costs measured in thousands of dollars and time measured in days. And what you see is that the comparisons of taking an agile modern approach with modern tools versus the results of a traditional kind of legacy approach. And in both, measured in both time and money, the differences are really staggering. In that the agile approach for any size of organization, from small organizations to jumbo-sized global multinationals, the agile approach yields benefits that are both faster. Typically, they take a third or less in time and are delivered at a fraction of the cost of a legacy approach. So we'd be happy to work with anyone to go into these details more closely, but what we've seen so far across any size of organization, taking this kind of agile approach to monetization and improving the customer experience, not just on the front end, but through the whole life cycle, yields tremendous results, financial results, bottom line results when it comes to monetizing. And so in conclusion here, whether our business is a kind of high performance racehorse, the mythical unicorn, or just a steadfast profitable mule, we always see room for improvement. And if you pick any one of the major business trends today, the continuous customer, Industry 4.0, the subscription economy, or how we're going to respond to the impact of the coronavirus, pick any one of those, and what you see underlying that is the need for better monetization and more customer intimacy. And the opportunity here is to engage with a new set of tools, to look at the processes, and to be able to, the good news is that we're able to deliver now a better experience that also delivers better financial results than we've seen in the past. And there's plenty of hard data to back up the ROI to support that new kind of thinking. So our bottom line here, as I hand off to Eddie McNeil, is the new approaches to monetization, it just can't wait. And so with that, let me hand off to Eddie.
Thanks, Andrew. So what we're going to do is just have a look at what we can do to help you to move this forward and to move into some of the strategies that Andrew's covered. One of the things that we find is that you really need to listen to your products, and that's a holistic view of how your products are working, how your customers are actually using your products. So that will help you rethink the way you actually build and license your products as you go forward. So if we look at the challenge of the product manager is the roadmap. How do they put the roadmap together? You know, a lot of it's based on the gut instinct, market research, educated guesses, and you know, maybe some of the key customers that are big deals moving into the feature sets. This isn't necessarily going to be a benefit. One of the reasons is because, you know, we have access to so much competitive intelligence nowadays, and also so much analyst data, that it can actually result in a copycat behavior. And for large companies where you're not moving quickly, and you're not able to be agile and introduce those new packages and new business models within that 90-day period that Andrew talked about, it does actually put you at risk of copying other products that maybe doesn't have a big impact into the market. So market research isn't just enough on its own. So to understand what the customers want, it's very reactive. It takes quite a long time to get a good set of data from lots of different customers across lots of industries. So you need to know and understand what data your specific customers are expected to want. So you as a product manager are expected to know the market and the product better than the customers. I mean, the customers know what they need for sure. However, they don't necessarily know what they want and know what other businesses are doing within that market space. Steve Jobs famously said it's not his job to give a customer what they want, but it's his job to figure out what they need and what they will need in the future. Similarly, Henry Ford, you know, if you'd asked people what they wanted, then they would have said they want faster horses. What the customer wanted, they wanted to get from one place to another place quicker. They'd never thought of a concept of a car, of a motor vehicle. So we have to think outside of the box a lot of the time as well, and seek beyond the obvious. So peel back the layers and look at what the actual drivers are for the customers, and what the markets are doing, and not necessarily just in your own vertical. You need to look at which other markets for which verticals will be impacted by your market as well. So we are really looking at a new era of value moving to subscription economy. There's no more killer features. If you look at someone like a Salesforce.com, what version are they on? They're constantly introducing new features. They're constantly upgrading the products, because the customers are really looking at what the value is that you can actually provide to the end customer. So they're really looking for the outcome of what you can actually provide to them as a customer. So having that constant stream of value over the time means that the days of building a big release and then launching it as a big market release are over. You need to look at what your product's actually doing, how the customers are actually using the product. You may actually find that there's unintentional benefits of your product. Now, if you don't know and you don't have the insight into those features, you won't be able to repackage the product to create additional value for your customers. If we look at the subscription economy, it's growing rapidly. 51% of the market will move to subscription by 2021. That doesn't mean that the total product range will move to subscription by 2021. It's more likely to be a mix of products between a CapEx and OpEx model. So you're actually adding the base product maybe as a capital expenditure to the customer, which is what they're used to, and then you're adding value in a subscription model for different features that are adding additional value to the customers. Although the movement to SaaS is equal to the subscription economy, it doesn't necessarily mean that all subscription is SaaS. We also have a lot of our customers that are adding additional value and continuous value through on-premise and feature-based licensing. So there's a lot of hybrid environments that are going to be in the environments that you're going to need to understand how to manage those as you go forward. What I would say is that what we find is that where the niche markets are coming into play, they're the ones that give you the most opportunity to provide added value to your main products. So they're the ones that things like where Uber and Airbnb have been able to disrupt the market. Most of that is because they've been able to change their business model quickly. So they'll be able to change it rapidly, almost overnight, to be able to meet the customer demand and what their customers are actually feeding back to them, and what their product's feeding back to them. So as a product owner, you know, what do you want and where do you go now? I mean, as a business, you know, you need to know who's actually using the software, which persona are using the software. You really want to understand, am I losing customers in customer churn when you go to subscription? The customer relationship is much closer when you move to subscription because they can move away from it much quicker if you're not adding the value that they see in their business. Are people actively using the software? So you may have sold the software to a customer, but if they're not actively using it, when you come to renewals or you come to the renewal of the subscription, then it's less likely that they are to renew that subscription because they don't see the value. So they're actually, you need to make sure that they're actually actively using the product and use that data to be able to understand how they're using the product. Do they need more training on a specific new product that or feature that you put out? Are there particular features that you weren't aware that the customers find extremely valuable because of the way their market's changing? And also from a sales perspective as well, to understand what their when their renewals are due, how much are they actually using of what they've purchased at the moment? Are they using up to the capacity they've used, or are they using well below the capacity that they actually need? And then you'll find that your renewal conversation with the customer will be much easier to be able to have that conversation and gain benefits. So we're seeing a big change in the way that we do business now, and the way our customers are doing business. So it's much less about revenue enforcement, so protecting your IP. It's much more about revenue intelligence as we move to the subscription economy. And what we mean by that is that understanding how your customers are actually using your product, getting the insights into the different components of the products that the customers are using, and the benefit they're actually seeing from those different features and components, means that you have much more capability in introducing much more value. And as Andrew said earlier, then you can have that conversation about gaining more value from the customer. So some of the areas that we find are beneficial, I'm just going to go through these couple of slides rather quickly. It's just to give you a snapshot example of some of the things that you should be looking at, some of the areas that you could find data intelligence and really predicting trends within customer bases, even down to industries where you can see the trends where specific industries may be changing their buying pattern or buying cycle. So that you can have those intelligent and informed conversations with the customer to ensure that you're actually adding the most value to them, and they want to upsell. You can then you can also reduce the churn of the customer as well. One of the elements that Andrew discussed was being quick to put together a new license model. So a new business model, and that's about repackaging. It's about changing a particular market from a perpetual license to a subscription license or a pay-per-use license, and it's being able to make that change quickly. So a lot of the businesses we talk to where they've maybe got a homegrown licensing, they really are looking at a product release. So it could take 3-6 months to actually release a new product out, just because they want to change their packaging. Really, if you look at again the Ubers and the Airbnbs, they're able to change their packaging and change their offering rapidly. So you need to be able to flip that business model for different customers and different markets, because they won't all be the same. So there will be different times that the customers want to flip their business model over, perhaps to subscription or to pay-per-use. And offering try and buy licenses or offering trials or new features that you're launching to make sure that it's actually a good fit for the business and where it might fit within your packaging of the products. Tracking the expirations and understanding where the renewals are within your portfolio, and identify upsell and cross-sell opportunities. So if your business acquires lots of businesses and you want to be seen as one business, so you can cross-sell and upsell to different business units, then you need to have a system of record for entitlements, where you can understand what the overall entitlement base is and the overall use of the software is, so that you can identify trends as to if a customer, or if a certain number of customers have bought a particular product, they are more likely to or have more propensity to buy a cross-sell product as well, so complementary products. So the journey to creating value. So if you look at how typically we would like to see the journey, a nice simple journey going from I've got a piece of software, I'm selling it directly to the customer or through the channel, and then that's going to the customers, and then it's successful. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So we look at the revenue streams. So you're going to have different areas of sorry, just let me go back a couple of slides here. So here we go. So revenue streams, so flexible packages, enabling try and buy licensing, be able to track expirations or renewal notifications, being able to track where they may want to do an upsell or a cross-sell. All of those are different revenue streams that you'll need to track. Operational efficiency. Move away from the Excel manual spreadsheets that may be managing your licensing at the moment. That's actually restricting your growth for the business, and also your margin. Remote activation, so make sure that you've got much more autonomy for the customer to be able to self-service the process and to be able to upgrade and renew licenses as on their own. Online updates and be able to download new packages where necessary, and back office integration. So that goes with automated delivery. Is making sure that you have your quote to cash process, which is automated all the way through, so that you really understand what not only how your customers are activating your product and actually using your products, but also giving you intelligence on how your portfolio is doing as well. Customer satisfaction, moving to subscription. This is extremely important. We can actually call this customer success. So customer success is driving revenue for your business. So it's self-service. It's enabling you to have that intelligent conversation with the customer. They know how many licenses they've used, how many they've purchased, and you also know that as well. So having a transparent view of the number of licenses and the software that they've actually purchased means you can have that intelligent conversation and less frictionless conversation around the self-service and the customer satisfaction. Being able to automatically update the products and instant delivery, and also being able to provide instant notifications within the applications as well. Business insights. So we want to be able to help you to monitor the activation. So you don't want to be in a position where you've sold the customer a product and it becomes shelfware. When it was perpetual, that wasn't too much of an issue because you would have the annual maintenance. Where it's a subscription economy, it's hugely important to be able to monitor the activations of the product so you can see what the actual uses of the product. Be able to track the entitlements to make sure that you understand what the trends are of the purchase of the software, and to be able to understand the install base as well. So be able to understand what the version data is of your software particularly in highly regulated environments. That's very important to understand. As we look through and we're looking at tracking your renewals and generate reports, actually this goes further than generating reports now. We're actually generating insights. We're enabling data visualization to be able to identify where trends are coming in and how to react to those trends and advice on how to react to those trends. So revenue intelligence providers are leading the charge and delivering the promise of what Salesforce automation was supposed to do. So we're really looking at how you're making business. It's moving away as you're moving towards the subscription economy, to just enforcing what's being sold, to creating more value to the customer. And the more value you create for the customer, then the more revenue you'll be able to generate from those customers as well. So listen to your products. Today's connected world, and a lot more businesses we're finding are going to connected, even though traditionally they've been very isolated, and making sure that you're not just listening to your products in what feedback you're getting from your customers, but actually looking at the data visualization you're getting from the products with the tools that are available on the marketplace. And I'll now hand back to Catherine for any questions and answers.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Andrew, for this valuable insights into the topic. We have got some questions, but everybody feel free to enter questions that have just arisen from the previous minutes into the questions window so that we can get to them. So one of the questions was around customer experience and customer intimacy. This is often seen as something more in the front end UI UX topics. I think what we've seen from your both presentations is that it's much more than just the user experience piece. How does the front end look like? Any additional comments to that from you guys?
Yeah, so I would say that customer intimacy, moving to the subscription economy is paramount. There's some research being done that by Harvard Business Review that if you provide a good customer experience for the customer and make them successful, then they're 142% likely to renew. Whereas if the customer experience is poor, then they're 58% likely not to renew. So it's a pretty big difference, and it really what you're looking to do with your customer experience or customer success is to be able to extend the lifetime value of that customer, so that you're generating more and more revenue and adding more and more value to that customer over time. Andrew, anything else to add?
Yes, just to add to that, I think the customer experience, if we think about it in a business to consumer or B2C kind of model, when we live our own personal lives online, we almost implicitly expect the sites that we go to kind of know who we are, because of the way that the web is kind of instrumented now. That's possible. So when we go to a site where we may shop frequently, we implicitly expect that site knows what we've purchased in the past, what we've been looking at, and what we might be interested in buying today. And when you translate that to the business world, the capabilities are there now so that you can have an informed conversation with a customer where the customer is expecting us to bring them a solution with the expectation that we know their business, we know how they're consuming the product, and we've done some thinking in terms of what they would want to do next with that product. And so I think the the whole notion of the customer experience has got to go back to kind of the early concepts of what Regis McKenna, one of the first marketeers in Silicon Valley and the real guru that put Apple on the map, when he talked about the whole customer experience and the fact that the product is just one little piece of that whole customer experience.
Thank you, Andrew. We have another question from the audience. With the onset of COVID-19, will there be an increase in technology updates where less and less human interaction is encouraged? I think that goes in a similar direction than the topic that we just addressed. And one example here would be the hospitality industry. What do you think?
Yeah, so Eddie, I'll take that first. So we've been doing briefings with a wide range of clients, and I can say that the companies that are in the commerce side of things and in the enablement of helping companies do business, let's say more electronically, they're seeing an explosion in their business. I mean, some of those companies had the best month of March in the history of their business, and their pipelines have grown 10x. And so what that points to is that, as I mentioned in the presentation, I think what we've learned from COVID-19 so far is that if there's any manual intervention required, we really need to try to eliminate that as much as possible. So if that comes down to provisioning of product, if that comes to how easy it is for customers to onboard themselves versus requiring engineers on site, there are a lot of those little steps that can be potentially eliminated. And this experience with the coronavirus just underscores the need to kind of digitize. I don't know, Eddie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd add to that. It's we see that within our customer base all the time, particularly where businesses want to either adapt, enter new markets, or grow rapidly. Where there's manual intervention, then that's one of the areas that it doesn't cut costs. What it does, though, it actually builds a foundation for growth. So even reducing manual processes is really about growth of the business and growth of revenue and growth of margin, particularly. You can imagine if you're looking to grow the speed of someone like a Zoom, which is growing 84% in the last quarter, then you can imagine if they had any manual processes in there, they would have to hire lots and lots of staff to be able to cope with that. And that can also impact your customer experience as well, because you start transactioning a lot more, and as you transaction a lot more, you do introduce more manual errors, and that can actually feed back either to customer support in the terms of support tickets, or often what we find is it actually goes back to the sales teams. So they start having a lot of administration time to try and resolve those issues that may come in from a particular customer. So automating the process is really your foundation for growth. So if you think about it as not we want to save costs, think about it more as we want to be able to grow, and this is our foundation for growth by automating.
I think one question that goes along with what you just said, Eddie, is somebody's asking how difficult is this to apply for traditional software, such as complex desktop applications similar to AutoCAD or others. What would be your comment to that, Eddie?
Yeah, so we work a lot with AutoCAD customers, and you can imagine with AutoCAD that you're releasing almost every day. So having that continuous improvement, yes, it's something that goes into the products. The way that we look at the product set that we have is that the enforcement technology, if you like, is within the products. So that would be within the AutoCAD product, but actually the business decision engine is at the back office, and they're loosely connected. So you can change your business model and change the way that you actually packaging the product without having to release a new product into the market. So that means that you have a lot more flexibility and agility in the way that you're going to manage those products and package the products. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that also goes in line with the slide that Andrew has shown about the different systems and that are needed for an agile enterprise. So maybe Andrew, you want to add to that how difficult it is for traditional enterprises. What's your experience with this to adopt to this agility?
Yeah, I think that comes down to one of the comments I had, which was it's really a shift in kind of mindset more than anything else. And I think as long as what we've seen is the companies that are successful, if you think about some of the most successful companies that have shifted from a traditional on-premise license model to a subscription model, and some of the companies that begin with an A are kind of the poster examples of that. When you go look at how they did that, they really put the customer as kind of the North Star of their efforts in terms of reducing customer friction, increasing customer enablement, and making it easier to understand how the customer is consuming the product, and then translating that understanding of the consumption into the ability to generate new offers, new pricing, unique offers based on that.
Yeah, and I think corresponding to that again, we have two questions going into the direction of having some practical recommendations. One says we're a small business that is selling licenses and have an own license generating solutions. We are now setting up a new business unit to sell subscriptions. What would you recommend to review the own licensing solution or start with a new one? And I think the other one is more into the direction of, yeah, what are best practices for recurring revenue models? How can you approach these kind of new business models for a corporation? Andy, do you want to start from your?
Yeah, I think the first question you have to ask, I think, is what's your underlying business? Are you in the business to develop software and make your customers successful? Or are you in the business of building entitlement systems, billing systems, etc.? Because we come across that quite frequently, and there's a temptation, especially for companies that have had that entitlements capability built into their product or service in the past, to want to replicate that in the new business or in the new product or service. And at the end of the day, often when you go look at those organizations, how successful are they a year, 2 years, 3 years out? They often find that their products or services aren't getting the kind of traction that the product managers wanted. And it's because their internal capabilities, not with the product, but around the product, so things like billing, things like entitlements, are slowing them down. And it comes back to that first question of, are you a software developer focused on the problem that you're trying to solve and the solution that you're bringing to the market? Or are you trying to develop product and also develop these other ancillary systems that are part of monetization? And it's all moving so quickly today and so specialized that it's just much easier and much faster, and yields a better result by looking at adding partners rather than trying to build everything ourselves. I don't know, Eddie, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd just add to that you know, with regards to the question about you already have your own licensing solution and you're starting on a different path with a subscription model. Do you need to build? Should you carry on building your own or should you start looking at a commercial off-the-shelf offering? You know, I would echo what Andrew's saying. It depends on what your core business is, really the way we're seeing markets change is we're seeing customers move away from their homegrown licensing, and the reason for that is because the market is moving so quickly. There are lots of different elements to licensing and entitlement management and monetization that are coming rapidly. It's not to say that you need to do a hard migration of your existing products. You could actually use the business decision engine to still manage your own products with the legacy licensing, but start off on a subscription licensing, because that's the one that's going to change and you're going to have to continuously create value for.
Thank you, Eddie. I think we're approaching the top of the hour, so I would like to thank everybody for attending this webinar and to remind you guys about the recording. We will send it around to all the people that participated or signed up for this webinar today. If you guys have any additional questions, you see here the details of Eddie and Andrew. Feel free to address them with additional questions. And yeah, thank you for being with us today, and thank you, Eddie and Andrew, for this valuable insights.
Thank you, everybody.